The fluorescent lights in the procedure room buzzed faintly overhead, casting everything in a sterile, unforgiving white. Kayla Johnson lay motionless on the reclining chair, her hands clenched into tight fists on her stomach, her knuckles pale. The skin on the bridge of her nose was taut and inflamed, a swollen dome the size of a large marble rising just left of center. There was a pinhole in the middle, small, dark, moist. Dr. Susan Martinez adjusted the magnifying lamp, her brows drawn tight beneath her surgical cap. She'd been a practicing dermatologist in Miami for over 18 years. She had removed thousands of cysts, excised suspicious lesions, lanced boils, and drained abscesses in every imaginable place on the human body. But this made her stomach turn. Beneath the lens of her dermatoscope, the truth revealed itself in one twitching moment. Something moved inside the hole. It wasn't just pus shifting or the usual buildup of keratin. No, it was segmented, intentional.
Keep watching, because what unfolds next shakes an entire city. Before we go any further, guys, I need to tell you something that honestly blows my mind every time. Less than 5% of the people who watch these stories are actually subscribed. 5%. And if you're here, if you believe in real justice and respecting the men and women who serve this country and holding the powerful accountable no matter their last name, then hit that subscribe button right now, because the story you're about to witness isn't just entertainment. It's a lesson. It's a reminder that integrity still exists and that even the most untouchable people can be humbled. And trust me, what comes next? You don't want to miss it. It's 10:30 a.m. on a cold November morning in Providence Municipal Court. The kind of morning where the air bites through your coat and every breath feels sharp. Inside the courthouse, though, the atmosphere is even colder. You can feel it the moment the camera pans across the hallway. Reporters whispering, veterans sitting shoulder to shoulder in the gallery, citizens leaning forward as if history is about to unfold right in front of them. Guys, this isn't a regular morning. This isn't one of those casual parking ticket days you've seen 1,000 times. No. Today, the room is packed. So packed that people are standing against the back wall, clutching their coffee cups like lifelines. The fluorescent lights hum overhead, mixing with the faint sounds of shuffling papers, tapping shoes, and the low murmur of anticipation. Judge Frank Caprio sits at the bench with an unusual stillness. At 76 years old, he's seen everything, from heartbreaking stories to outrageous excuses. But even he can feel something different in the air today.
Alive. Oh my God, she whispered, drawing back abruptly. Her rolling stool skidded several inches behind her. Kayla's eyes flew open. What? What is it? Her voice cracked, panic already bubbling. Dr. Martinez swallowed hard, then forced herself to speak with the calmness only years of practice could supply. Kayla, I need you to stay completely still and very calm. Do you trust me? Kayla nodded slowly, her breath shallow. Am I gonna die? No, the doctor said gently, glancing at the nurse beside her. But what you have isn't a blackhead, or a cyst, or anything cosmetic. It's a parasite. Kayla stared at her, stunned into silence. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. Dr. Martinez continued carefully. It's a larva, likely a human botfly. It's been living under your skin for a while. That dark spot you've been seeing? That's not a clogged pore. It's an air hole. It's how it breathes. The color drained from Kayla's face. You mean it's alive?
His reading glasses sit low on his nose, and every now and then he glances at the stack of documents in front of him. The case file he's already reviewed 3 times this morning because something about it just wouldn't leave his mind. Across the room, the veteran community fills an entire row, men and women with quiet pride written across their faces, wearing jackets embroidered with unit patches, baseball caps from old divisions, medals pinned over their hearts. They're not here out of curiosity. They're here because one of their own, Samuel Sam Walker, a 70-year-old American veteran who served in Iraq and Afghanistan, is sitting silently among them with his arm in a cast, and the energy shifts every time someone looks at him. You can see it. Respect, pain, anger, a collective sense of not again. This isn't just a court case anymore. This is a moment the whole community has been waiting for, a moment where justice needs to prove that it still works, even when the defendant is the son of the most powerful law enforcement officer in the city. And guys, everyone in that packed courtroom knows something big is coming. They just don't know how big.
Her voice came out thin, like it was being squeezed from her throat. The doctor nodded. Yes, But we're going to take care of it, right now. The nurse had gone pale but was already laying out instruments on the tray beside them. Scalpel, curved forceps, antiseptic pads, local anesthetic. A small kidney dish clinked against the metal surface. Dr. Martinez gently placed a hand on Kayla's shoulder. This isn't going to be pleasant, but you're going to be okay. Kayla didn't respond. Her eyes were locked on the overhead light, unblinking. Her whole body was rigid, as if frozen between the moment of knowing and not knowing. Can you feel it moving? The doctor asked softly. Kayla swallowed. Sometimes. At night, I thought it was just in my head. The doctor didn't answer. Instead, she injected lidocaine into the bridge of Kayla's nose, warning her of the sting beforehand. Kayla winced as the needle pierced her skin. 1, 2, 3 times, each injection more painful than the last.
And then, right when the clerk calls the case, the double doors at the back of the courtroom open with that heavy wooden thud, and in walks the man everyone has been waiting for. Brandon Hale, 32 years old, son of Police Chief William Hale, and walking like someone who genuinely believes the floor should be grateful to touch his shoes. Guys, the attitude hits you before he even takes 3 steps. He's wearing a charcoal designer suit that probably costs more than most people's monthly rent, perfectly fitted, not a wrinkle in sight. His shoes shine like mirrors. His hair looks like it has its own personal stylist following him around, and hanging on his wrist is a watch so expensive it might as well have its own security detail. But it's not the clothes that get the room buzzing. It's the smirk. That slow, lazy, I'm bored already smirk plastered across his face as he scans the room like he's looking at a group of people who wasted his time by merely existing. He doesn't look nervous. He doesn't look ashamed. He looks annoyed.
Her eyes watered, but she didn't cry. She just kept staring upward, her chest rising and falling in short, fast breaths. As the anesthetic took hold, Dr. Martinez leaned in with her scalpel, her movements deliberate. She made a small incision, just enough to widen the larva's breathing hole, just enough to expose it. And there it was, pale, glistening, and horrifyingly real. Its segmented body writhed gently as if disturbed from a deep sleep. Tiny black spines wrapped around its form like backward-facing thorns, barbs designed to anchor it deep into flesh. Dr. Martinez exhaled sharply. It's bigger than I thought. With the forceps, she reached in carefully, trying to avoid rupturing the larva. If they broke it, an intense inflammatory response could follow. Pain, infection, permanent scarring. She needed it intact. For a moment, the larva resisted, its barbs clinging stubbornly to Kayla's tissue. The doctor rotated her grip, adjusting the angle, then applied gentle, firm traction.
Like this entire courtroom is an inconvenience he can't wait to walk away from. He takes a few steps down the aisle, hands in his pockets, shoulders relaxed, and every eye in the gallery follows him. Reporters lean forward, veterans stiffen. One woman in the back actually shakes her head. You can feel the collective reaction ripple through the room, gasps, whispers, eyebrows raised high enough to hit the ceiling. And then comes the moment that seals everyone's first impression of him. As Brandon walks past Samuel Walker, the 70-year-old American veteran he assaulted, he doesn't even glance at him, not a nod, not a flicker of acknowledgement, nothing. It's as if Sam isn't even a human being in his eyes. As if the man sitting there with a cast on his arm and pain written across his face is just air. Guys, the disrespect is so thick you could slice it with a knife. And the veterans in the gallery, they notice. Oh, they notice every second of it.
It slid out with a sickening sound. A wet pop, like suction being broken. Oh my God, the nurse whispered. There, wriggling in the forceps, was the full creature. About 1.5 inches long, thick and curved like a swollen grain of rice, its body coated in mucus and flecked with blood. The posterior end, dark and flat, was clearly visible, with 2 small spiracles twitching as it gasped for air it would no longer have. Kayla blinked slowly, her face blank. The doctor dropped the larva into a specimen jar filled with saline. It hit the bottom with a plink and curled in on itself, still alive, still moving. That was inside me? Kayla asked, her voice like paper. Dr. Martinez nodded. Yes. For about 3 weeks, judging by its size. Kayla covered her mouth with both hands. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just stared at the jar like it was something ancient and evil, something not meant to exist in the same world as people. The doctor turned back to her. You're going to be okay.
Judge Caprio looks up just in time to catch that smirk. And for the first time this morning his expression changes. But while Brandon Hale makes his grand, arrogant entrance, there's someone else in that courtroom who captures a very different kind of attention. He's not flashy, he's not loud, he's not wearing anything that screams for recognition. And yet, the moment your eyes land on him, you feel something shift. Sitting quietly in the second row, dressed in a simple flannel shirt and a worn veteran's cap, is Samuel Sam Walker, 70 years old, American veteran, a man who served in both Iraq and Afghanistan. He's the kind of man whose presence isn't announced, it's earned. Lines carved by years of sacrifice shape his face, and his good hand rests gently on the cast wrapped around his wrist, a painful reminder of what happened just 3 days ago. Guys, he's not trying to look brave. He is brave. There's a difference. His breathing is slow, steady, but you can see the strain every time he shifts in his seat.
I'm going to clean the cavity and close the incision with dissolvable stitches. There will be a scar, but small. You'll also need antibiotics, and I'd recommend speaking to someone, a therapist. This kind of thing, it stays with people. I thought it was a blackhead, Kayla whispered. I know, the doctor said. That's how they fool us. When the procedure was over and the bandage placed gently across her nose, Kayla sat in silence for several long minutes. She stared down at the tiled floor, her fingers twitching against the edges of the paper drape. The nurse left the room quietly. Dr. Martinez stayed a moment longer. Do you have someone to call? She asked. Kayla shook her head. No, it's just me. 3 weeks earlier, Kayla Johnson was standing in front of her bathroom mirror, holding her breath. She tilted her head slightly, studying the bridge of her nose under the harsh white vanity lights.
Broken ribs will do that. His left wrist is immobilized, wrapped in layers of plaster, and every now and then his fingers twitch, not from fear but from healing. There's dignity in every movement. Even in the small wince, he hides behind a calm, disciplined expression. And here's the part that gets everyone in the room. Sam Walker isn't angry, not at first glance, not at all. He's sitting there the same way soldiers sit during debriefings, quiet, alert, composed. But behind his eyes you can sense it, the disappointment, the hurt, the disbelief that after serving overseas, surviving firefights, pulling younger soldiers out of burning vehicles, this is how he's treated in his own city, shoved to the ground by a man young enough to be his grandson. When Brandon walked past him moments earlier without even looking his way, Sam didn't react. Not a flinch, not a glare.
Her skin was blotchy from the numbing cream, and the tiny puncture wounds where the threads had been inserted were red, almost angry looking. It wasn't what she expected. The woman at the spa had promised her everything would settle within 48 hours. It's the latest collagen thread lift, she'd said. Minimally invasive, zero downtime, and super subtle. You'll look amazing for your trip, honey. Kayla had nodded, her credit card already trembling in her hand. It had cost $299. A special promo she found scrolling Instagram late one night. No medical license on display, no formal consultation, just a white room with a glitter wall, a ring light, and promises. She hadn't told anyone. Not her friends, not her boyfriend Derek, and definitely not her mother. Especially not her mother. Her mother, Linda, would have lost her mind. Not because she cared, really, but because she'd see it as a waste of money. You think a prettier nose is gonna fix your mess of a life? She would have said between sips of boxed wine. So Kayla kept it to herself.
Just that steady, dignified stillness, the kind that comes from a lifetime of discipline and an understanding that respect is something you give freely, even when others don't. And the veterans sitting behind him, they feel the insult on his behalf. You can almost hear their thoughts. Not this man, not Sam, not like this. To understand why this courtroom is so full of tension it could snap in half, we have to go back just 3 days. 3 days earlier, on a quiet afternoon in Roger Williams Park, Samuel Walker was out doing something he'd done almost every day since retiring, walking his golden retriever, Scout. The leaves were crunchy underfoot, the air crisp, families strolling around, kids laughing near the pond. It was peaceful, the kind of peace a man like Sam earned the hard way. But guys, peace never lasts long when arrogance is speeding around the corner. A metallic silver BMW barreled down the narrow park road, way too fast for a public park. Parents pulled their kids closer. A couple jumped aside. And Sam? He froze for half a second, not out of fear but surprise.
The truth was, it wasn't just vanity. It was the emptiness, the quiet ache when she looked at herself and saw someone unremarkable, someone who could disappear in a crowd and not be missed. The nose thread lift wasn't for prom. It wasn't even for Derek. It was for her. The swelling didn't go down after 2 days. By day 4, her nose was still sore to the touch, and there was a dull ache beneath the surface, just under the skin. She messaged the spa's Instagram account. No response. She considered going back, but the thought of walking in and being told you did something wrong made her stomach twist. And besides, she had a trip to pack for spring break in Costa Rica. Jungle eco lodge, ziplining, hot springs, waterfalls, the kind of thing that looked perfect on social media. She was going with 5 other girls from her sorority. Brilliant, tanned, always smiling girls who knew how to pose and filter like influencers. Kayla often felt like a side character around them. Pretty, but not striking.
The car missed him by barely a foot, the wind from its speed brushing his jacket. Sam lifted his good hand in a simple gesture we've all used. Slow down. That's it. No yelling, no threats. Just a calm motion from a 70-year-old veteran trying to keep people safe. But Brandon took it as a personal insult. The BMW screeched to a stop, so suddenly the tires screamed across the pavement. Birds fluttered out of the nearby trees. Sam instinctively stepped back, tightening his grip on Scout's leash, and then the door of the BMW slammed open. Brandon stormed out like a man who believed the world existed to serve him. His chest puffed up, his voice already raised, and he charged towards Sam with all the entitlement of someone who had never been told no. "What the hell is your problem?" Brandon yelled, jabbing a finger towards Sam's face. But Sam stayed calm because that's who he is. "Sir," he said evenly, "you're driving too fast. There are families out here. Please slow down." Boy, that should have been the end of it.
Friendly, but not magnetic. She told herself this trip would be different. She'd glow this time. The new nose contour would help. Maybe in the group photos, she'd finally stand out. When the plane landed in San Jose, the air was thick with humidity. Everything smelled like rain and earth. The Eco Lodge sat just outside the jungle, perched on the edge of a sloping hill. Their cabin was made of bamboo and recycled glass. The beds had mosquito nets. Each night the forest buzzed with a symphony of chirps and croaks. The girls were ecstatic. Day 1 was hiking to a hidden waterfall. Day 2, kayaking in a lagoon so clear you could see straight to the rocks at the bottom. Kayla wore high-waisted shorts, a floral bikini top, and a careful layer of sunscreen. Her nose was still sore, but manageable. She chalked a lingering tenderness up to the thread still settling. By day 3, the bugs were relentless. No matter how much DEET they sprayed, mosquitoes found them.
A normal person would sigh, maybe apologize, maybe even laugh it off, but not Brandon. No, Brandon stepped closer, his jaw tightening, his eyes burning with ego. "Don't tell me what to do, old man," he snapped. "You don't boss me around. Nobody does." A few bystanders started recording, because when someone yells at a 70-year-old veteran in a park, you know something bad is coming, and guys, they were right. Before anyone could react, Brandon shoved Sam hard enough that the veteran's feet left the ground for a second. Hard enough that he hit the pavement shoulder first, his head cracking against the concrete with a sickening thud. Scout barked wildly, trying to reach him. People gasped. A woman screamed. One man ran towards Sam while another held out his phone, shouting that he was calling the police. And what did Brandon do? He smirked, actually smirked. Then he said it, the sentence that would ignite an entire city. "Call the cops. My dad is the police chief."
Tiny gnats clung to sweat-slicked arms. One of the girls had over 10 bites on each leg. Kayla dabbed eucalyptus oil on her neck and tried to ignore the itching. That afternoon, they set off on a steep jungle trail toward a waterfall that supposedly emptied into a turquoise pool. The humidity was stifling. Leaves slapped their arms as they passed. Kayla was near the back of the line, wiping sweat from her brow with the back of her hand. When it happened, a soft flutter on her face, just over the bridge of her nose. Her hand reacted before her brain did, an instinctive slap. The squish under her palm was barely noticeable. She wiped her hand on her shorts and kept moving. Just another bug. She didn't even flinch. Ahead, someone shouted, "There it is." The jungle opened up into a clearing, where the waterfall cascaded down a mossy cliff into a shimmering blue pool. The girls ran forward, stripping down to bikinis, laughing as they dove into the water. Kayla hesitated only a moment before following.
"I dare you." He stepped back, dusted off his suit jacket like Sam was some inconvenience. He brushed off his sleeve, got back into his BMW, and drove away as if he hadn't just injured a man who served 2 tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. Sam lay on the ground, dazed, clutching his wrist. Pain shot up his arm. His ribs felt like fire with every breath. Blood trickled near his temple. But even then, he apologized to the people helping him. Classic Sam Walker, always thinking of others first. The ambulance arrived. Sam was taken to Rhode Island Hospital, where doctors confirmed a concussion, fractured wrist, and 3 broken ribs. Meanwhile, the park's security camera footage made its way to the local news, and once the city saw what had happened to a respected American veteran, Providence exploded with outrage. That's why the courtroom is full today. That's why every seat is taken. That's why every breath feels heavy. Because this isn't just a crime.
She swam, smiled, posed for photos. One of the girls caught a boomerang of her twirling in the water, arms outstretched, her laugh frozen in midair. That night, she looked at the pictures on her phone and felt, for once, beautiful. What she didn't know was that the bug she slapped on her nose had been a mosquito, and that mosquito had been carrying tiny, almost invisible eggs from a creature called Dermatobia hominis, the human botfly. The botfly doesn't lay eggs directly on humans. Instead, it hijacks other insects, usually mosquitoes, and uses them as unwitting delivery systems. When that mosquito lands to feed, the warmth of the host's skin triggers the botfly eggs to hatch. In a matter of seconds, the larvae wriggle down into the bite wound, burrowing under the skin. It was a 1 in a million moment, but it only takes one. Back at the cabin, Kayla noticed a faint red dot forming on the bridge of her nose, just a tiny spot. She figured she'd scratched herself.
It's a violation of respect, service, and basic humanity. The moment the clerk announces the case, the state of Rhode Island versus Brandon Hale, the entire courtroom seems to inhale at once. It's that breath people take right before a storm hits, when the air feels thick and charged and you know something big is about to happen. Brandon rises slowly, adjusting the cuffs of his suit like he's preparing for a photo shoot instead of a criminal hearing. And standing right beside him is his high-profile attorney, Alan Pierce, the kind of lawyer you hire when you want problems to disappear. Alan looks sharp, polished, ready to take control, but guys, Brandon has no intention of letting anyone control him, not even the man he's paying a fortune to. Judge Caprio looks down at him with that calm, fatherly expression he's known for, the kind that usually softens people. But Brandon doesn't soften. He hardens. Mr. Hale, Judge Caprio begins, you are charged with assault and battery on an elderly person, specifically Mr.
She dabbed a little aloe and forgot about it. The rest of the trip passed in a blur of laughter, cocktails, and bug spray. Her nose ached a little more, but she figured the constant sun, sweat, and sunscreen were just irritating the skin. By the time they boarded the plane back to Miami, the red spot had darkened slightly, but it was still small, hardly worth noticing. When she got home, she unpacked slowly, still basking in the afterglow of the trip. Her roommate asked about the redness on her nose. Kayla shrugged. Just a clogged pore, I think, probably from the sunscreen. She stood in front of her bathroom mirror that night, staring at the bump. It wasn't large, maybe the size of a pimple, a little sore but manageable. She leaned closer, squinting under the light. There was a tiny black dot in the center, almost like a pinhole. She touched it gently. It hurt more than she expected. She frowned, pulled back, and opened the medicine cabinet. Tea tree oil, salicylic acid, spot treatment.
Samuel Walker, 70 years old, an American veteran. How do you plead? Before Alan can even rise, Brandon moves. He steps forward slightly, planning himself like he owns the courtroom. Not guilty, he says, his voice loud, firm, dripping with entitlement. This whole thing is ridiculous. Guys, the word ridiculous hits the room like a slap. You can hear the veterans in the back shift sharply in their seats. A woman gasps. Someone mutters, "He didn't just say that." Judge Caprio blinks slowly, the way he always does when he's deciding whether to give someone grace or give someone a reality check. "Ridiculous," he repeats, setting his glasses on the bench. "Mr. Hale, I have reviewed the security footage. I have read the hospital reports. I have seen the photographs of Mr. Walker's injuries. Would you like to reconsider calling this case ridiculous?" Alan Pierce gently touches Brandon's arm, signaling him to stop talking. But Brandon brushes him off.
She applied all 3. It'll be gone in 2 days, she told herself. It wasn't. At first, Kayla convinced herself it was just a post-vacation breakout. She'd been in a humid jungle for 10 days, drenched in sunscreen, bug spray, and sweat. Her pores were probably just purging, right? But this one bump, it was different. It didn't come to a head. It didn't dry up. It didn't respond to anything she put on it. By the third day after she returned home, the red bump on her nose had grown from a pinpoint to a noticeable bump the size of a lentil. It was slightly raised, tender to the touch, and still had that tiny black dot in the center. She told herself it was a blackhead, just a deep one, a stubborn one, probably from the clogged pore reacting to the collagen threads from her cheap nose lift. She didn't want to panic. She didn't want to admit that something might be wrong. So, she did what so many people do when faced with something small and strange on their skin. She Googled it.
Literally brushes him off, and then he doubles down. Of course he does. With all due respect. Brandon begins, and immediately every person in the courtroom knows disrespect is about to follow. This is being blown out of proportion. Some old guy got in my way. I barely touched him. You should have seen the room. The oxygen practically evaporated. Some old guy, about Sam Walker, a man who served overseas, who took shrapnel to protect American soldiers, who lived through things Brandon couldn't survive for 5 minutes. The veterans in the gallery look ready to stand up and say something. One of them grips the armrest so tight his knuckles go white. Judge Caprio doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't need to. Mr. Hale, he says slowly, that old guy spent years risking his life so you could enjoy the freedoms you take for granted. Brandon rolls his eyes, the disrespect is staggering. It hits the room like a cold wind. Alan Pierce, now sweating slightly, steps forward.
Her search history over the next 24 hours included: blackhead won't go away, painful pimple on nose won't pop, how to draw out deep acne, can nose filler cause infection. That last one made her stop scrolling for a second. The word infection sparked a flicker of anxiety. She clicked a few articles, all of which showed horrifying photos of inflamed, swollen faces, open wounds where fillers had gone wrong, but hers didn't look that bad. Not yet. So instead of seeing a doctor, she went into DIY mode. She started with warm compresses, damp washcloths soaked in hot water, pressed against her nose for 15 minutes at a time. When that didn't help, she tried salicylic acid, then benzoyl peroxide, then tea tree oil. By day 4, the skin around the bump looked raw from overtreatment, but the bump itself hadn't budged. The pinhole in the center seemed darker now, and maybe deeper. Sometimes it looked like it shimmered slightly, as if there was moisture just beneath the surface.
Your Honor, my client is young and may have chosen his words poorly, but the evidence will show. Judge Caprio raises one hand. No, he says. I asked your client, not you. The entire room freezes. Brandon straightens his jacket, chin lifted. Look, I was having a bad day. People have bad days. I didn't know he was a veteran. How was I supposed to know? And that is the moment Judge Caprio's expression changes. His compassion finally hits its limit. Mr. Hale, he says, leaning forward, it shouldn't matter whether he's a veteran or not. Assault is assault. But the fact that you think his service is the only thing that makes this serious tells me everything I need to know about your character. The gallery murmurs. Brandon scoffs. And guys, you can feel it. The tension is coiling, rising, building, because the next thing that happens, nobody in that room sees it coming. Judge Caprio doesn't argue. He doesn't debate.
It was unsettling, but she told herself it was just irritated skin. She'd damaged the surface. That's all. She went to bed that night, tossing and turning, convinced she could feel something, an ache, a pressure, throbbing beneath her skin. The next morning she snapped. Standing in front of the mirror, sleep-deprived and fed up, she grabbed 2 tissues, wrapped them around her fingers, and pressed down on either side of the bump. The pain was immediate and shocking. It shot deep into the cartilage of her nose, so intense it made her vision blur. She let out a gasp, stumbling back from the mirror, her breath coming in short, shallow pants. Nothing came out. No pus. No blood. No sebum. Just more redness, more swelling. She dropped the tissues, her hands trembling. What the hell was this thing? She thought about calling Derek, her boyfriend of nearly a year. He was good with stuff like this, level-headed. But they'd had a weird tension ever since she got back from the trip.
He simply leans back, folds his hands, and says 4 words that instantly shift the temperature of the entire courtroom. Let's watch the footage. Guys, you could feel the tension thickening like fog. The clerk wheels over the monitor, plugs in the drive, and the moment that first frame pops up, the room goes completely silent. Not courtroom silent, graveyard silent. Even Brandon stops smirking, just for a second. The footage begins with a peaceful park scene, leaves scattered across the pavement, families strolling. Sam Walker walking with Scout at his side. And then, out of nowhere, the silver BMW enters the frame like a missile. Too fast, way too fast. You hear gasps ripple through the courtroom as the car swerves dangerously close to Sam, and then the moment everyone has been talking about for days plays on screen for the first time inside the courtroom. Brandon slamming the brakes, Brandon exploding out of the car, Brandon storming toward a 70-year-old man with pure aggression in every step. The camera angle isn't dramatic.
He'd barely noticed her new look, hadn't even commented on her nose. She wasn't sure he'd even care, and if he did see it, he'd probably tell her to just go to a doctor, which she wasn't ready to do, so she didn't call him. Instead, she went into full camouflage mode. Heavy concealer during the day, hats when she had to go outside, but even makeup couldn't hide the swelling now. Her nose was visibly raised on one side. The bump was hard to the touch, like something was sitting just beneath the skin. The pinhole in the center had widened slightly and had begun to glisten. Not pus, not blood, just a clear, wet sheen. One afternoon, while applying concealer, she thought, just for a second, that she saw the dark center move, just the tiniest flicker, like something twitching beneath the surface. She froze. Her stomach twisted. No, it wasn't possible. That was her imagination. Just nerves. She hadn't eaten all day. She was tired. That was it.
It's not cinematic. It's raw. It's real. And that somehow makes it 10 times worse. Then comes the shove. Sam's body hits the ground hard, so hard that people watching the footage physically flinch. One woman in the gallery actually covers her mouth. The veterans stiffen like someone just punched them in the chest. You can practically feel the air leaving the room as Sam's head smacks the pavement. And then, guys, this is the part that makes everyone furious. Brandon stands over him, pointing, yelling something the camera doesn't fully catch, but his posture says everything. Contempt, zero empathy, zero humanity. Then he walks back to his BMW like he just won an argument instead of injuring a senior citizen. When the screen goes black, no one moves. Not a whisper, not a shuffle, nothing. Judge Caprio turns slowly toward Brandon. Still think this is ridiculous, Mr. Hale? Brandon swallows hard.
Still, that night, she covered the bump with a square of breathable medical tape. She didn't even know why she did it. Maybe to protect it, maybe to trap it. But by morning the tape was pushed slightly outward, bulging from the bump itself, as if something had pressed against it. She ripped it off and stared into the mirror. The pinhole looked a little wider now, like a pore that was breathing. She told herself she was being ridiculous, but she was also beginning to panic. She opened Instagram and started scrolling through her trip photos. In every one she looked radiant, alive, blissfully unaware of what had already begun inside her. In one she was mid-laugh, sunlight catching the droplets on her skin, the jungle behind her a blur of green. And there, right in the center of the frame, was her nose. Perfect, symmetrical, smooth, no bump. That was 3 days into the trip. She scrolled forward, 4 days, 5, 6, and then, there it was. Photo number 8, taken just before they left the waterfall hike.
His face drains of color, and for the first time since he walked into that courtroom, the arrogance cracks. His lawyer leans in, whispering frantically, but Brandon doesn't respond. His eyes stay glued to the blank screen like he's hoping the last 30 seconds didn't actually happen. But they did, and every single person in that courtroom saw it. Guys, you can feel something shifting. Justice isn't creeping in. It's charging straight toward him. And the next moment, the twist no one in that courtroom sees coming. And just when you think the courtroom can't get any quieter, Judge Caprio leans forward, looks past Brandon, past the lawyers, past the rows of reporters, and fixes his gaze on someone sitting all the way in the back. His voice cuts through the silence like a knife. "Chief William Hale," he says, calm but firm, "would you please come forward?" Guys, if oxygen had weight, the room would have collapsed under it. Every head whips around. Every reporter raises their camera. Every veteran straightens up.
She was grinning, but her nose had a faint shadow right where the bump was now. She zoomed in. It was barely visible, but it was there. A tiny red dot, like a bug bite. She stared at it for a long time. Suddenly she remembered the moment, the slap on her nose, the bug she'd squashed and wiped away. Her blood turned cold. That's when it started. That's when it must have gotten in. A sudden memory surfaced from freshman biology, something about parasitic insects, about larvae that could burrow under the skin. She'd always dismissed it as something that happened in the Amazon, to people who lived in villages or worked in animal rescue. Not to sorority girls in Florida, not to people like her. She opened YouTube, YP'd parasite bump black center hole die brar, ND. Then she saw it bra, ozons of videos, stories, extractions, bot flies. Our hand flew to her mouth.
Because sitting there, in plain clothes, blending into the background like a man who didn't want to be noticed, is the police chief of Providence, Brandon's father, the man who runs law enforcement in the entire city, and he stands slowly, heavily, like the weight of 35 years in uniform suddenly settled onto his shoulders. You can almost hear Brandon's heartbeat from across the courtroom. His head snaps around, confusion turning into panic. His lips part as if he's trying to speak, but nothing comes out. Chief Hale makes his way down the aisle, each step echoing with that stern, disciplined cadence only lifelong officers carry. No badge, no uniform, just a father walking toward a truth he can't escape. When he reaches the front, he nods respectfully to Judge Caprio. "Thank you for being here, Chief," the judge says. "I know this must be difficult, and guys, what happens next? No script could prepare you for it, because Chief Hale doesn't stand there as a powerful man or a police leader."
The images were horrifying. Swollen bumps with breathing holes, people flinching as larvae wriggled beneath their skin, the moment of extraction when something pale and squirming was pulled from a person's arm, leg, scalp, or face. Kayla dropped her phone. Her chest felt tight. Her vision swam. She could barely breathe. But instead of calling a doctor, instead of telling anyone, she shut off her phone, crawled into bed, and pulled the blankets over her head. Maybe it wasn't that. Maybe she was just spiraling. Maybe it was still just a blackhead. Day 1 after the pop attempt. The bump didn't just resist her squeezing, it retaliated. The skin on her nose was now inflamed, with a dull, throbbing ache that refused to fade. Kayla stared at her reflection under the bathroom light, her skin raw, irritated, and flushed around the bump. She applied an ice pack wrapped in a paper towel and winced at the cold sting. The surface wasn't just red anymore, it was angry. She skipped class that morning, citing a migraine to her professor over email. Really, she didn't want anyone to see her face.
Or a figure the community fears or admires. He stands there as a father whose heart is breaking. "Your Honor," he begins, voice steady but thick with emotion. "I watched the footage the day it happened. I read the hospital reports. I know exactly what my son did to Mr. Walker." Brandon whispers desperately, Dad, please." But Chief Hale raises one hand without even looking at him. "Brandon, enough. The authority in that word is absolute." The room goes still. Chief Hale turns back to the judge. "My son believes that my position makes him untouchable. He's implied it to this court, to the public, and clearly to himself. But he is wrong. He has always been wrong about that." Brandon's face crumples, fear mixing with humiliation. This is the first time, the very first time, his father has ever spoken to him like this in public. The chief continues, "I've spent 35 years serving this city. I've arrested violent criminals, drug traffickers, even corrupt officials."
When she did finally leave the apartment to grab coffee, even the barista asked if she'd bumped into something. Kayla laughed it off. "Allergies," she muttered. "My sinuses are freaking out." But inside, she was spiraling. Day 2. She woke with pressure in her face, like sinus congestion but more localized, focused entirely on the bump. It had grown, not massively but enough to notice. It now resembled a small marble under her skin, smooth and round. The black dot in the center had deepened in color and looked open. Like a pore that had been hollowed out. She avoided mirrors. She couldn't stop touching her nose, gently prodding it to see if the pain had changed. It had. There was a deep, localized ache beneath the surface. And something else, an itch. A maddening, ticklish sensation that came and went without warning. By evening, she'd convinced herself it was a cyst, maybe something from the collagen threads. She called the number on the spa's website. It went straight to voicemail.
"I've risked my life for the laws of this country, and not once have I believed that my badge gave me or my family the right to break those same laws." He takes a breath that shakes ever so slightly. "I thought I raised my son better. I thought I showed him what integrity looks like, what service means, what respect is." He gestures toward Brandon without turning his head. "But somewhere along the way, I failed. Because the young man standing here today is not the man I tried to raise." You can hear someone in the gallery sniffle. A reporter lowers her camera for a moment. And then Chief Hale turns fully to his son. His voice softens, but that softness is sharper than any anger. "Brandon," he says, "I love you. You are my son. That will never change. But loving you does not mean protecting you from the consequences of your actions. Love is not shielding you. Love is holding you accountable so you can become the man you're meant to be." Brandon's eyes fill with tears.
"Hi, this is Kayla Johnson. I had a nose thread lift done at your spa 2 weeks ago, and I think I'm having a reaction or something. There's a lump and it's not going away. Could you please call me back?" No one ever did. Day 3. The glistening around the bump was now consistent. The area looked damp, even when she hadn't touched it. When she leaned close to the mirror and shined her phone's flashlight on it, she could see the faintest movement inside the hole, like ripples on water, barely there. No, it can't be. She almost Googled larva inside skin breathing hole, almost, but stopped herself. She didn't want to go down that rabbit hole again. Instead, she smeared more ointment over the spot and covered it with gauze. She called Derek. When he answered, she hesitated. "Hey," she said, trying to sound casual. "Can I come over?" "Sure. What's up?" "Nothing. Just need to get out of my head." She didn't tell him about the bump.
"Dad, I'm sorry, I didn't." Chief Hale shakes his head. "No. You had every chance to be better. You had every advantage. And you chose arrogance. You chose violence. You chose disrespect toward a man who served this country with honor." He turns back to Judge Caprio. "Your Honor, whatever sentence you believe is appropriate, you have my full support. My son assaulted a 70-year-old American veteran. He showed no remorse until this very moment. He disrespected this court, this community, and everything I stand for. Do not go easy on him. Not for me, not for my position, not for our name. He needs this lesson now, before he hurts someone else." Guys, the room erupts in murmurs. This is unprecedented. A police chief asking a judge to punish his own son, openly, publicly, wholeheartedly. Brandon breaks down, tears streaming, whispering, "Dad, please, don't do this." But Chief Hale answers with the most heartbreaking truth a father can speak. "This is the only way I can help you."
She wore a baseball cap low over her face, hoping the bill would cast enough shadow. They watched Netflix and ordered Thai food. When he leaned in to kiss her, she flinched. "You okay?" "Yeah, just sensitive skin right now." She spent the night curled away from him on the couch. Day 4. She didn't go to class. She didn't leave her room. She barely ate. She lay on her bed with the lights off, eyes closed, one hand hovering over her nose but never touching. The itch had become a tickle. The tickle had become a flutter. At one point, she swore she could feel something shift under the skin, just a fraction of a movement, like pressure sliding from one side of the bump to the other. She cried herself to sleep that night. Day 5. Her roommate, Alicia, finally noticed something was really wrong. "Kayla, babe, are you okay?" Kayla pulled the blanket higher over her face. "Just tired. Your nose looks worse. I think you should see someone." Kayla wanted to scream, but she just nodded. "Maybe tomorrow."
And in that moment, the entire city witnesses it. A father choosing justice over blood, principle over comfort, and integrity over everything. Judge Frank Caprio stands completely still for a moment, letting the weight of Chief Hale's words settle over the courtroom like a thick winter fog. You can almost feel the collective heartbeat of the room sync up, everyone waiting to see how the judge, known for compassion, fairness, and the ability to see the humanity in every case, will respond to a situation unlike anything he's faced in decades. He lifts his glasses, wipes them with a slow, deliberate motion, and sets them gently back on the bridge of his nose. That move, fans of his know it well. It's the moment before the truth lands, the moment before the lesson begins. He turns his attention to Brandon, whose eyes are still swollen with tears, whose arrogance has finally cracked into something raw and unfamiliar, fear. "Mr."
That night, she dreamed she was in Costa Rica again, walking through the jungle. But this time, the trees whispered. Her skin crawled with unseen movement. She woke up in a sweat, heart pounding, and ran to the bathroom. She turned on the light. The bump was now visibly larger, and the skin surrounding it looked bruised, bluish-purple beneath the surface. The hole in the center had widened again. She leaned in, her breath caught. Inside the hole, for the briefest moment, she saw something pale. It moved, a twitch, then vanished. She screamed. Day 6. She didn't leave the bathroom for hours. She sat on the closed toilet lid, phone in one hand, flashlight in the other, lifting and lowering the light over the bump, waiting for it to move again. It didn't, or maybe it did and she just missed it. At this point it didn't matter. Her mind was unraveling. Every small itch on her body made her panic. Every shadow in the mirror became a threat. She was sure there was a living thing inside her.
Hail, Judge Caprio begins, his voice steady but carrying the gravel of lived experience. You heard your father. You heard the man who raised you, who dedicated his life to serving this community, who has undoubtedly sacrificed more than you will ever know. Brandon lowers his head, shoulders shaking. But today, Caprio continues, your father did something far more difficult than arresting criminals or enforcing the law. Today, he did what every good parent prays they have the strength to do. He pauses. He told the truth. Even when it hurt. Brandon sniffles, wiping his face with his sleeve, but Judge Caprio isn't finished. Not even close. You assaulted a 70-year-old American veteran, the judge says, his tone firm but never cruel. A man who served in Iraq and Afghanistan, a man who has already paid more for this country than you can imagine. And after injuring him, you showed no remorse. Not at the scene, not in the footage, not when you entered this courtroom. The silence is suffocating.
But the fear of hearing it confirmed by a doctor kept her frozen. She didn't want it to be real. She applied another round of tea tree oil, then tried honey, then a hot compress. Nothing helped. The pressure in her face intensified. Her nose felt tight like something was expanding inside it. She opened her Instagram DMs to message the spa again. The account was gone. Deleted. Day 7. She finally called her mom. Linda didn't answer. Voicemail, Linda here. If this is about money, I'm tapped out till Thursday. Leave a message. Kayla didn't leave a message. Instead, she sat on the edge of her bathtub and stared at herself. Her face, her eyes. She thought about everything she had done to be more beautiful. The threads, the filters, the photos. Now there was a thing in her face, and no one knew. She considered going to the ER. But then what would she say? Hi, I think I have a bug in my nose. They'd laugh. They'd call psych. And the ER was expensive. She had student insurance with a $1,500 deductible.
It wasn't until your father spoke, until he exposed the depth of your entitlement, that you finally began to understand the seriousness of your actions. Brandon's voice comes out barely audible. I'm sorry, Your Honor, I really am. Judge Caprio nods slowly. That is the first honest thing you've said today. He straightens in his seat. Now let's talk about accountability, guys. The entire courtroom leans forward at once. Every camera tilts upward. Veterans fold their arms. Even the clerks look up from their paperwork. Mr. Hale, the judge declares, I find you guilty of assault and battery on an elderly person. This is a serious offense, and it demands a serious response. Brandon swallows so loudly, the microphone almost picks it up. Your sentence is as follows. You will serve 90 days in the Providence County Correctional Facility. A wave of gasps rolls through the courtroom. Even Brandon's legs buckle slightly. You will complete 200 hours of community service, specifically serving elderly veterans at the Providence VA Medical Center. BR more murmurs. Veterans nod approvingly. You will attend 1 full year of anger management counseling administered by the court. BR Allen Pierce, the attorney, closes his eyes. This is far from the slap on the wrist he expected. You will write a formal letter of apology to Mr. Walker, which will be read aloud in this courtroom upon your release. BR Brandon nods rapidly now, tears streaming again. And you will issue a public video apology posted on the Providence Police Department's official social media pages. In that video, you will explain what you did, why it was wrong, and what you are doing to change. BR reporters nearly fall out of their seats. This is unprecedented. But I'm not finished. The room stiffens. After completing your sentence, you will speak to every new class of recruits at the Providence Police Academy. You will teach them about privilege, humility, and the dangers of believing you are above the law. BR Brandon breaks again.
1 scan, 1 consult, and she'd be in debt for the rest of the semester. No, she'd find a dermatologist, a walk-in, maybe urgent care, tomorrow. She told herself tomorrow again and again. But tomorrow came, and the bump got bigger. The bump was now undeniable. It bulged on the bridge of Kayla's nose like a second nose. Pink, raised, almost shiny from the stretched skin. No makeup could cover it anymore. She'd tried full coverage concealer, then green color-correcting cream, then powder. All it did was make the thing more obvious. It cast a shadow in certain lighting. It looked foreign on her otherwise symmetrical face. And still, she refused to see a doctor. Why? Because the formal was coming up in 5 days. She'd spent $300 on the dress, paid in installments, $120 for her hair and makeup appointment, $80 on the heels, $40 for a clutch. She wasn't about to let a stupid bump take this away from her. Not this. She told herself it wasn't getting worse, that it had stabilized. That maybe it was a cyst, a weird, post-filler reaction, that it would eventually drain. She told herself everything except the truth. Alicia, her roommate, leaned against the bathroom door frame one night and crossed her arms. Kayla, seriously, you need to go get that thing looked at. I made an appointment, Kayla lied. When? Thursday. The formal was Friday. Alicia frowned. Kayla, I love you, but that thing looks like it's trying to escape your face. What if it's infected? What if it's serious? Kayla snapped. It's not serious, okay? It's a clogged pore. Maybe a cyst. I don't need everyone acting like I'm patient zero. Alicia backed off, but her expression said everything. Later that night, Kayla sat in the dark, scrolling through TikTok videos under her blanket, watching other girls do get ready with me routines for their formals. Sparkly dresses, fake lashes, teeth whitening strips, perfect skin glowing under ring lights. She pulled the front camera on herself.
Yes, Your Honor. I'll do all of it. Judge Caprio looks him dead in the eye. You will do it because this is not just punishment, Mr. Hale. This is transformation, and if you embrace it fully, you might become a man worthy of the uniform your father wears, and then, almost like fate planned it, Chief Hale steps forward. Your Honor, he says quietly, with your permission, I'd like to add something. Judge Caprio nods. My son, the chief says, voice trembling, will also be moving out of my home today. He's 32. He's lived under my protection for too long. That ends now. He needs to stand on his own. Brandon stares at him, heartbroken but understanding. Dad, Chief Hale replies with a voice full of pain and love intertwined. It's time for you to grow up, son. And guys, in that moment, everyone in the courtroom feels it. Justice isn't ending here. Justice is beginning.
Turned sideways. Cried. She wanted to be that girl again. Just 2 weeks ago she was now? She didn't recognize herself. She hadn't spoken to her mom in days. Linda had seen one of the selfies she posted and commented publicly, "What's that thing on your face? Hope it's not herpes. You're already enough of a disappointment." Kayla deleted the comment and blocked her. Derek had been distant too. She finally FaceTimed him. "Brr, Jesus," he said as soon as he saw her. "What happened to your nose?" "Brr." Ayla forced a smile. "It's just a reaction. I think to sunscreen or something. It'll go down." "Brr. You sure? I mean, babe, it looks like..." "Brah. I said it's fine, brah." Here was silence. She could see the discomfort on his face, could see him pulling back emotionally in real time. "Brr. I'm still coming to formal," she said quickly. "I've got the dress. I'll just use makeup, da brr." Eric didn't argue. He just said, "Okay," and changed the subject.
6 months later, the gates of the Providence County Correctional Facility slide open with a metallic groan that echoes across the empty parking lot. The air is warm now, late spring, sunlight spilling across the pavement. And for the first time in half a year, Brandon Hale steps back into the world without handcuffs, without guards watching him, without the arrogance that once clung to him like a second skin. Guys, he doesn't look like the Brandon who strutted into that courtroom with a designer suit and a smirk. Not even close. He's thinner. His shoulders aren't thrown back anymore. They sit lower, humbler. His haircut is simple now. His eyes, not cold and sharp like before, carry something new, something almost unfamiliar. Weight, reflection. A person who has spent nights staring at the ceiling, replaying the worst moment of his life again and again until the truth carved itself into him. Waiting for him by the curb is Samuel Sam Walker. Yeah, you heard me right. The 70-year-old American veteran Brandon, once shoved to the ground, is standing there, leaning on a cane, wearing his old army jacket, Scout sitting loyally by his feet. And he's waiting for Brandon, not because he has to, not because anyone told him to, but because that's who Sam Walker is, a man who protects, even when he's the one who was hurt. When Brandon sees him, he stops dead in his tracks. His eyes widen, his throat tightens, and for a moment he doesn't move at all, doesn't breathe, doesn't blink, because facing Sam is harder than any day spent behind those bars. But Sam nods once, gentle and steady. Come on, son, he says. Let's talk. No anger, no bitterness. Just a hand outstretched, not physically but emotionally, spiritually. A gesture that hits harder than any punishment a judge could give. Brandon walks over slowly, like his legs aren't ready to carry him after everything he's done. Mr. Walker, he begins, voice cracking, I don't deserve. Sam lifts a hand. Brandon, forgiveness isn't about deserving. It's about choosing not to let anger own you.
She spent the next 2 days trying every skin treatment she could find on Reddit. A turmeric paste, apple cider vinegar, a baking soda mask. Nothing helped. The bump remained. It seemed to mock her now. Sometimes, when she lay in bed in silence, she could feel it. Moving. Not a dramatic shift, just a twitch, a presence, like a heartbeat that didn't belong to her. She covered it with a bandage and called it a mole removal site whenever anyone asked. The morning of the formal, Kayla stared at herself in the mirror. Her makeup artist hesitated when she saw the nose. I can't really cover that, she admitted. You sure you still want lashes and contour? It might draw more attention to the center of your face. I want the works, Kayla said. The makeup artist gave her a look but didn't argue. 45 minutes later, Kayla looked beautiful, except for the bump. She took selfies from angles that hid the left side of her nose. She forced herself to smile. She tried to convince herself she still had control.
Guys, you could feel that sentence. That's the kind of line that sticks to your ribs for years. They walked to Sam's truck together. Sam slower, Brandon matching his pace. And the entire ride to the Providence VA Medical Center is quiet, but not awkward. It's the kind of silence where healing begins. Because here's the thing, while Brandon served his 90 days, he also began serving his 200 hours of community service at the VA. And guess what? He didn't stop at 200. The man who once mocked an elderly veteran now spends hours pushing wheelchairs down hallways, listening to stories from soldiers twice his age, helping nurses distribute meals, repairing old furniture in the common room. He learns their names, their injuries, their battles, their losses. Over time, the veterans, tough men and women who don't trust easily, start calling him kid with affection instead of annoyance. Some even ask for him by name because he shows up every week.
But the moment she stepped into the ballroom, she felt it unravel. People stared. Some subtly, others not so subtly. Girls whispered behind their hands. One of her sorority sisters leaned in and asked, "Oh my God, Kayla, what happened? That looks painful." "It's nothing," Kayla snapped, too sharply. Later, during group photos, the photographer gently suggested she turn her face a little to the right. Everyone knew why. The music, the lights, the laughter. It all felt surreal. Like she was underwater. Like she was floating outside her own body. She laughed when she was supposed to. Took shots, danced, kissed Derek, but inside she was screaming. By the end of the night, the bandage had started to peel at the corners. She excused herself to the bathroom. The moment she was alone, she pulled off the bandage. The hole was wider. She leaned in, and this time, she saw it. It wasn't imagination. It wasn't stress. A pale, segmented shape curled just beneath the surface, partially exposed through the hole. It moved.
Even after his mandatory hours end. And Sam? Sam becomes something Brandon never expected. A mentor, a guide, a mirror reflecting who he was and who he could become. They talk about everything: war, strength, mistakes, manhood, growth. Sam tells him stories of Iraq, of soldiers he carried through explosions, of friends he lost, of nights he spent praying he'd make it home. And Brandon, eyes wide, heart open, listens like he's hearing the world for the first time. Meanwhile, that public apology video, it doesn't just go viral, it explodes. 3 million views in a week. Thousands of comments from veterans, police officers, parents, even young men who say the same thing. This made me rethink everything. People expected arrogance. They expected excuses. What they got instead was a broken man telling the truth, owning every inch of his wrongdoing, apologizing without excuses, without makeup, without a script. And you know what hit viewers the hardest? The vulnerability, not the staged kind.
Twitched. Slid back down. She backed away from the mirror, hand over her mouth, nausea rising in waves. There was a thing in her face, and she'd been dancing, kissing, laughing. She burst into a stall and vomited. 10 minutes later, she walked back into the ballroom like nothing had happened. She didn't tell anyone, didn't ask for help, because she couldn't handle what she'd seen. She convinced herself it would come out on its own, that maybe she could coax it out, that maybe, somehow, this was still normal. That night, she didn't sleep. She sat in her bed, face pale under the glow of her phone screen, watching extraction videos on YouTube, crying silently as each one confirmed her worst fear. UT still. She didn't call a doctor Burr. OT yet, because part of her still believed if she didn't say it out loud, it wouldn't be real Burr. Ayla woke at 3:17 a.m. with a jolt, her heart racing as if she'd been running in her sleep.
The real kind. The kind where his voice cracks when he mentions Sam. The kind where he says, "My father didn't give up on me. He held me accountable." The kind where he looks into the camera and says, "I hurt a man who served this country. I hurt my community. I hurt myself." That video changed people. But the biggest change happened at home. Chief William Hale attends every anger management session with his son, not because the court ordered it, but because he wants to understand him, to support him, to rebuild what arrogance shattered. Slowly, painfully, honestly, they repair their relationship, not as chief and privileged son, but as father and grown man. And Brandon doesn't run from accountability anymore. He speaks at schools. He warns teenagers about entitlement. He tells police cadets what happens when you believe your last name is a shield. He becomes the man his father always hoped he'd be, because sometimes hitting rock bottom isn't the end.
For a few seconds she lay frozen, staring at the ceiling, unsure what had shaken her awake. Then she felt it, a movement, not a pulse, not a throb, an actual movement, slow, purposeful. From inside her nose, her skin prickled with cold sweat. She sat up, clutching her face with both hands, her breathing sharp and uneven, her vision blurred. She waited, terrified, body trembling. Then it happened again. A glide, like something pushing upward under the skin, toward the surface. Oh God, oh God. Her voice cracked in the darkness. She scrambled out of bed, nearly tripping over her comforter, and ran to the bathroom. The overhead light flicked on, harsh and blinding. She leaned toward the mirror, gripping the sink, her knuckles white. The bump looked worse in the artificial light. Swollen, purple-tinged, stretched across the bridge of her nose like something trying to break out. The hole in the center was wider now, a dark pinpoint that seemed to pulse faintly with her breath.
Sometimes it's the foundation you needed all along. And guys, when you look at everything that happened, from the arrogance in that courtroom to the tears 6 months later, you realize something powerful, something that hits harder than any sentence, any lecture, any punishment. Justice isn't just about consequences, it's about transformation. It's about forcing someone to confront the parts of themselves they've spent their whole life avoiding. Brandon Hale didn't change because he was thrown in jail. He changed because a veteran showed him grace, because a father chose integrity over comfort, because a judge believed accountability could create a new man instead of destroying one. And Sam Walker, that 70-year-old American veteran who had every right to demand vengeance, he chose something stronger, something most people never manage. He chose forgiveness, not to excuse what happened, but to free himself from bitterness, to help someone rise instead of fall deeper.
Kayla raised her phone, turned on the flashlight, and aimed it directly at the opening. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the surface shifted. A pale segment slid upward, pushing slightly into view, curved, glistening, alive. Kayla screamed, raw, piercing, guttural. She stumbled backward, hand over her nose, tears pouring instantly. Her stomach lurched. She gagged, choking as bile rose into her throat. No, 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 please no. She pressed her back against the wall, sliding down until she hit the tile floor. Her legs shook violently. The buzzing in her ears grew louder. She felt like she was drowning in air. It wasn't a cyst. It wasn't filler migration. It wasn't a clogged pore. It was alive. The truth slammed into her so violently she couldn't breathe. The room spun. Her hands shook uncontrollably. Every horror video she had watched, every story she had read, every instinct she had tried to suppress came roaring back at once. She was hosting something that moved and grew and breathed through her skin.
So here's the truth, guys. Real love doesn't protect people from consequences. Real love walks with them through the consequences that turn them into better human beings. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever witnessed someone disrespect an elder, a veteran, someone who deserved far better? Tell your story in the comments. And if you believe in real justice, justice with heart, with courage, with integrity, Hit like, hit subscribe, and share this story with someone who needs to hear it. Because this wasn't just a court case, this was a lesson, a reminder, a transformation, and it's one we should never forget.
She squeezed her eyes shut, pressing her palms to her ears, trying to block out the sound of her own ragged sobs. No, I can't. The ticking of the bathroom vent echoed like a metronome in the silence that followed. When she finally opened her eyes, the mirror glared back at her. Her face was blotchy, streaked with tears. Her nose throbbed with a deep, unbearable ache. She forced herself to stand. Her legs felt like wet noodles. She leaned on the counter to steady herself, then dared to look again. The hole was empty now, nothing visible beneath. Whatever she'd glimpsed had retreated. But that made it worse, because now she knew it was hiding, waiting, moving. Her phone buzzed from her bedroom. Derek texting her a casual "You awake?" She ignored it. She couldn't even type. Her hands were trembling too hard. She needed help. She needed a doctor. She needed someone. She opened her contacts. Her thumb hovered over Dad. He was awake early for work. He might answer. He might care. She imagined him picking up, saying her name with concern. But the memory of last week stopped her. When she'd told him she felt off, he'd said, "You're young, Kayla. It passes. Drink water." He always said that. About everything. Headaches, anxiety, grades, life. Her hand slid down to Mom. Kayla stared at the screen for a long, quiet moment. She pressed call. It rang once, twice, then straight to voicemail. "Linda here. Leave it." Kayla hung up before the beep. A broken laugh escaped her lips. Half sob, half disbelief. She was alone, truly alone. She wiped her eyes with the sleeve of her hoodie, took a shaky breath, and forced herself back to the mirror. She had to see. She had to know. She leaned in again, raising the flashlight, and then she saw it. This time, unmistakable. The hole flexed, just barely. Then a tiny bubble of fluid rose, a twitch beneath the skin followed. The movement was subtle, but intentional, like a creature shifting to get comfortable inside its warm, living home. Kayla clamped a hand over her mouth, her knees buckling. She gripped the counter with her other hand to keep from collapsing. "Please," she whispered. "Please get out of me." Her whisper trembled like a child begging the dark not to swallow her. She backed away, pacing the bathroom. Her mind raced in chaotic circles. What if it crawled deeper? What if it ruptured? What if it entered her sinuses? Could it reach her eye? Her brain? She didn't know. She didn't care. She just needed it out. Now, she opened Google again, desperate, searching terms she'd been too afraid to type before. Botfly larva nose, dermatobia hominis extraction, parasite moving under skin breathing hole. Should I go to the ER? The answers were terrifying. And unanimous. It wouldn't leave on its own. It wouldn't die from ointments. It wouldn't dissolve. It would grow. And soon it would emerge on its own, chewing its way out of her flesh. Kayla gagged again. She grabbed her keys with shaking hands and tried to steady her breathing. She needed professional help. She didn't care how much it cost. She didn't care if she looked insane walking into a clinic saying something inside me is alive. She would not let that thing spend another day in her face. She opened the rideshare app, then froze. It was 4:12 a.m. Most clinics wouldn't open until 8. Urgent care center at 6. The ER was open, but the idea of sitting under bright lights surrounded by strangers while something moved beneath her skin made her chest tighten again. 5 hours. 5 hours until she could get help. She sank onto the bathroom floor, hugging her knees to her chest, rocking back and forth as if motion could somehow soothe the writhing sensation in her nose. "It's okay," she whispered to herself. "It's okay, it's okay. Please let it be okay." The sun was rising by the time she made her decision. She booked the earliest dermatologist appointment available in the entire Miami area, 9:15 a.m., with someone she'd never heard of, Dr. Susan Martinez. She didn't care who it was. She just needed someone to save her. And she prayed, pleaded with the universe, that she wasn't too late. The morning air outside was still cool when Kayla stepped out of the rideshare car and stood in front of the beige medical building. Her hands shook as she hugged her hoodie tighter around herself, the hood casting a shadow over her swollen face. The world looked oddly distant, as though she was watching everything through a thick pane of glass. Birds chirped from somewhere above the parking lot. A man in scrubs walked by sipping coffee. A receptionist unlocked the front door of the clinic. Everything was normal, everything except the creature inside her nose. Kayla swallowed, the taste of metal still lingering in her mouth from the night's panic. Her phone shook in her hand. She couldn't tell if it was from her nerves or because she was trembling uncontrollably. The clinic door clicked open. She stepped inside. The reception area was small but tidy. White walls, potted snake plants, a stack of outdated fashion magazines fanned perfectly across a glass coffee table. A watercolor painting of ocean waves hung over the front desk. Behind the counter, a young woman with a name tag reading Jess smiled politely. "Good morning," she said. "How can I help you?" Kayla approached slowly. I have an appointment with Dr. Martinez, 9:15. Jess typed quickly into the computer. "Kayla Johnson?" Kayla nodded. "Great. I'll just need you to fill out the intake form. I think something is living inside my face." The words spilled out before she could stop them. Jess froze mid-sentence, blinking. What do you mean?" she asked cautiously. Kayla pulled down her hood and revealed the swelling, the angry mound on her nose, the glistening hole in the center. Jess's eyes widened briefly before she schooled her expression into professional calm. "Okay," Jess said, voice gentle but steady. "Let's get you checked in. The doctor will see you shortly." The waiting room felt oppressively quiet. Kayla sat near the corner, the clipboard trembling in her hands as she tried to fill out her medical history. Halfway through the form, she felt another subtle shift beneath her skin. Like a ripple, a small push from inside. She squeezed her eyes shut and forced herself not to scream. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Jess opened the door to the back. "Kayla, the doctor's ready for you." Kayla stood, her legs barely able to hold her weight. The examination room smelled faintly of antiseptic and lavender air freshener. Medical posters lined the walls, skin layers, acne types, common rashes. The exam chair in the center looked more like a dentist's recliner than anything else. A knock sounded, and the door opened. "Good morning," a warm voice said. "I'm Dr. Susan Martinez." She was in her early 40s, her black hair pulled into a neat bun, her expression calm yet intensely focused. She moved with the confidence of someone who'd seen almost everything. Almost. Kayla didn't even try to speak. She just pointed at her nose. Dr. Martinez stepped closer. "How long has it been like this?" 3 weeks, Kayla whispered. "It's getting bigger. And last night, it moved." There was a flicker in the doctor's eyes. Not disbelief, but recognition. She pulled on gloves, adjusted the overhead light, and leaned in. "Let me take a look." A cold, circular glow illuminated Kayla's face as the doctor examined the bump. Dr. Martinez's eyes narrowed. "This doesn't look like acne," she murmured. "Hold very still." She reached for her dermatoscope, a handheld tool with intense magnification, and pressed it gently to the center of the bump. Kayla felt a faint tug as the doctor adjusted the angle. Then Dr. Martinez inhaled sharply. "Oh my God," she whispered involuntarily. Kayla's chest tightened. What is it? What do you see?" The doctor pulled back from the scope and met her eyes. "Kayla, there's a larva inside your nose. A botfly larva. It's real." Kayla's breath hitched, her vision swimming. "It's alive," she whispered. "I wasn't imagining it." "No," Dr. Martinez said softly. "You weren't." Tears welled instantly, spilling over before Kayla could stop them. "Please," she begged. "Get it out. Please, just get it out." "We will," the doctor promised. "But listen to me. We need to remove it carefully. The body of the larva has backward-facing hooks. If we rupture it or pull too hard, it could tear your tissue. It could cause a severe infection." Kayla nodded, barely hearing anything beyond "remove it." The doctor turned to her nurse. "Prepare petroleum occlusion. Let's try suffocation first. If it's mature, it may come up for air." The nurse, pale but composed, gathered supplies. "Doctor." Martinez coated the breathing hole with a thick layer of petroleum jelly, sealing it completely. She placed a small square of plastic over it and pressed gently. "We'll give it 15 to 30 minutes, she said. "If it needs to breathe, it will come up to the surface." Kayla sat stiffly in the chair, tears streaming down her cheeks. She could feel the pressure, the suffocating weight of the jelly sealing the creature inside. She imagined it struggling, pushing, writhing desperately under the surface. She nearly vomited. The room was painfully quiet. The ticking of the clock echoed like footsteps on marble. Every few minutes, the doctor removed the plastic to check for movement. Nothing. 15 minutes passed. Nothing. 20. Nothing. Dr. Martinez shook her head. "It's too mature. It's anchored in. We need to extract it surgically." Kayla nodded shakily, clutching the armrests. The nurse prepared the sterile tray. Scalpel, curved forceps, gauze, saline. The metallic tools gleamed coldly under the light. "This will sting, doctor," Martinez warned as she lifted the syringe of lidocaine. "I'm going to numb the area." The needle pierced Kayla's skin. A sharp, burning pain radiated outwards. Tears sprang anew. The doctor injected in 3 spots, each more painful than the last. Then came the numbness. A heavy, buzzing sensation settled around her nose. The doctor positioned herself, adjusted the light, and picked up the scalpel. "All right," she said calmly. Deep breath. Kayla inhaled shakily. Dr. Martinez made the incision. Though she couldn't feel pain, she felt the pressure, the unsettling sensation of skin parting, the soft slide of the blade. The doctor worked with meticulous precision, widening the breathing hole. As soon as she breached deeper tissue, her expression changed. "There it is," she murmured. "Oh God, it's larger than expected." Kayla's pulse pounded in her ears. She felt something shift inside the cavity. A ripple, a wave, a silent protest. The doctor reached for the forceps. "This might feel like pressure," she warned. "But don't move." Kayla gripped the chair until her fingers went numb. The forceps slid inside the incision. Kayla felt it. An indescribable internal scrape, a sensation so foreign it made her body stiffen. The doctor clamped onto something. The creature resisted. The doctor's eyes sharpened. "Hold still," she pulled, slowly, carefully. The sensation was indescribable, a sliding, dragging, horrifying pull from beneath the skin, as if something rooted inside her was being forcibly evicted. Then it happened. A soft, wet pop, followed by a long, slick pull. The doctor lifted her hand, and the room fell silent. Dangling from the forceps was the larva, thick, pale, segmented, nearly 1.5 inches long. Its body writhed, slow and sinuous, twisting as though confused by the sudden light. Kayla's breath left her in a soundless gasp. Her stomach lurched. She wanted to scream, but no sound came. The nurse choked on her breath. Jesus Christ. The larva's black-tipped spines protruded from each segment, tiny hooks that had anchored it deep into Kayla's flesh. The posterior end, dark and dimpled, had 2 spiracles that opened and closed like miniature mouths. It was breathing, right there in the air. Dr. Martinez placed it into a specimen jar, where it continued to writhe in saline. She sealed the lid quickly. Kayla couldn't take her eyes off it. That was in me," she whispered hoarsely. "Inside my face." "Yes," Dr. Martinez said gently. "And you came just in time. Another week, maybe 2, and it would have emerged on its own. Likely through the skin," Kayla gagged. The doctor cleaned the cavity thoroughly with saline, removing debris and dead tissue. She worked with steady, reassuring hands. "You were very lucky," she said softly. "These larvae can cause significant damage. The hooks burrow deeper as they mature. We'll need to watch for infection." She placed 3 small dissolvable sutures to close the incision, then applied a clean bandage. "It will leave a scar," the doctor said gently. "But we can talk about cosmetic options later." Kayla didn't care about the scar. All she could think about was the creature in the jar, moving, breathing, still alive. The doctor knelt beside her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You did the right thing coming in today." Kayla nodded numbly, but her voice, when it finally came out, was barely a whisper. "I don't think I'll ever feel clean again." The world outside the clinic felt strangely muted when Kayla stepped back into the sunlight. Cars hummed along the street. A dog barked from somewhere across the parking lot. A child laughed as he kicked pebbles along the sidewalk. Everything looked the same, but nothing felt the same. Not after what had been inside her. She touched the bandage on her nose, small, white, neat, and felt a strange hollowness beneath it. The feeling wasn't physical, it was something deeper. A quiet grief for the part of her that had been replaced by fear. The rideshare arrived, and she climbed in silently. The driver glanced at her once in the mirror but said nothing. She was grateful. She didn't want to speak. She didn't want to think. She just wanted to forget. But forgetting wasn't an option. Not when every throb beneath the bandage reminded her of the cavity carved out by something alive. Back at home, Kayla collapsed onto her bed, still in her hoodie, shoes and all. She stared at the ceiling, the image of the larva burning behind her eyelids. Every time she blinked, she saw it, fat, pale, segmented, writhing in the doctor's forceps like something out of a nightmare. It wasn't a dream. It wasn't a hallucination. It happened. By late afternoon, her phone buzzed, her dad calling. She hesitated before answering. "Hi, Dad," she whispered. He sounded in a rush. "Hey, kiddo, Got your text. Something about your nose, you okay? She swallowed hard. It was a parasite. A what? A botfly larva. It was living in my face. There was silence on the line. Then a heavy exhale. Oh, Jesus, Kayla. Did they get it out? Yes. Her voice shook. This morning. Good. Good. He cleared his throat, trying to mask the panic he hadn't shown in years. Do you need anything? Money for meds or, I don't know, therapy? The offer surprised her. Not because he was unwilling. He just didn't usually notice things like this unless they were spelled out for him. I'll be okay, she said softly. If that thing traumatized you, he said awkwardly, talk to someone. Seriously. Stuff like that sticks. She bit her lip. Yeah, I know. After the call ended, she felt a strange warmth settle in her chest. For the first time in months, maybe years, her dad had really heard her. Her mom was another story. Linda had left 3 missed calls and 2 voicemails. Kayla finally listened. Kayla, I swear if this is about some little rash, call me back. Second voicemail. Why are people messaging me saying you had a worm in your face? What did you do to yourself? Kayla deleted both without responding. She wasn't ready for her mother's voice. Not yet. The next few days were a blur of fear and exhaustion. She slept in short bursts, waking from nightmares where dozens of larvae crawled out of her face in the middle of a crowd. Each dream felt so vivid she'd wake up clawing at her skin, gasping. Simple things became terrifying. Washing her face, putting on moisturizer, even looking in the mirror. Every bump, every pore, every tiny shadow made her stomach twist with panic. What if one was still there? What if there were more? What if it laid eggs? Her rational mind knew the doctor had confirmed only one larva, knew she'd cleaned the entire cavity, knew she'd stitched and disinfected everything carefully, but trauma doesn't care about rationality. Her therapist, whom she started seeing 1 week after the extraction, told her the fear was normal. You survived something invasive, the therapist said gently. Your body was violated. Your sense of safety was shattered. It's going to take time to trust yourself again. Time. Kayla wasn't sure she had much of that. Derek didn't handle it well. When he came over the day after her procedure, he brought smoothies and tried to act normal. But when she removed her bandage to apply the antibiotic ointment, he flinched. Just barely, but she saw it. The look in his eyes wasn't disgust exactly. It was distance, fear, maybe revulsion. He tried to hide it, but the truth glimmered in his expression. She reminded him of something he didn't want to think about. That night, he left early. The next few days, he barely texted, and when he finally did, it was to say he was processing things and needed some space. The relationship dissolved quietly, not with a fight, but with a sigh. Kayla didn't blame him. She didn't even have the energy to be angry. She blamed herself. Not for the parasite, she couldn't have known, but for believing she needed to change her face in the first place. For letting a discount spa put threads in her nose. For risking everything just to feel pretty for a moment. That realization stung more than the breakup. Her scar healed slowly, first red and raised, then pink, then eventually softening into a faint white line. Not invisible, not beautiful, just a part of her now. Sometimes, in the wrong light, she would still catch someone staring. A stranger in line at Starbucks, a classmate, a cashier. Their eyes lingered a fraction too long on the bridge of her nose. She learned to hold her chin steady and stare back. But sometimes she didn't have the strength. Sometimes she'd run to the bathroom and sit on the floor until her breathing slowed. At the 3-week follow-up, Dr. Martinez examined her nose carefully. The tissue is healing well, the doctor said. No infection. The cavity is closed properly. You were lucky. Kayla nodded. Will the fear ever go away? The doctor gave her a soft smile. With time, and with help. She paused before adding, you know, if we had universal health care in this country, cases like yours might be caught earlier. People delay treatment because they're afraid of the bill. Kayla swallowed. I almost didn't come in. And if you hadn't, Dr. Martinez said gently, that parasite would have eaten its way out. Kayla shuddered. The doctor placed a hand on her shoulder. You survived. That's the important part. Over the next month, Kayla slowly began to reclaim pieces of her life. She attended a support group for people with medical trauma. She got rid of the cheap beauty products she'd once obsessed over. She unfollowed the plastic surgery meme accounts and influencer edits that used to fill her feed. She began posting honest photos, no filters, no retouching, just real skin, real healing. Some people messaged her with support, others with curiosity, a few with cruelty, but many messaged her quietly saying, "I think something's wrong with my skin. I traveled to Belize and now I have a bump. Should I be worried? Thank you for posting this. I'm going to get checked." Each message felt like a thread pulling her forward, stitching meaning into her ordeal. Maybe this happened to her for a reason. Maybe she wasn't just a victim. One afternoon, she visited Dr. Martinez's office again, not as a patient, but as a volunteer speaker for a group of medical residents. She stood at the front of the room, hands slightly shaking, and told her story. The hikers, the mosquito, the bump, the fear, the extraction, the jar, the larva. She watched the residents recoil, lean forward, take notes. She saw in their eyes what she wished she'd seen earlier: seriousness, understanding, compassion. When she finished, there was silence, then applause. For the first time since Costa Rica, she felt something lighten inside her. Not joy, exactly, but purpose. That night, as she lay in bed, she traced the faint scar on her nose. It was smooth now, no longer tender. A ghost of a wound that once defined her life. She whispered into the dark, "I survived." And for the first time, she believed it. Kayla never forgot the feeling of that cold examination chair, the bright white light, the scrape of metal, the moment a living thing, something she didn't invite, didn't expect, didn't even believe could exist inside her, was lifted out into the open air. But what stayed with her even longer wasn't the creature. It was the silence afterward, the way the world kept moving like nothing had happened. Cars passing outside, phones buzzing, people laughing. Everything so normal while she felt anything but. Healing didn't come in a straight line. Some nights she still woke startled, convinced she felt something crawling under her skin. Some mornings she stared in the mirror too long, waiting for a shadow to twitch, for a pore to widen, for the nightmare to return. But slowly she learned to breathe again. Slowly she reclaimed her body, her reflection, her life. And as the months passed, something inside her shifted, quietly at first, then unmistakably. The fear that once kept her awake at night became fuel. The shame that once made her avoid mirrors became purpose. She started reading everything she could about parasites, infections, global health. She joined public health forums. She messaged people who asked her for advice. And eventually, she changed her major: public health, education, prevention, awareness. If she had known the warning signs, if she had known the risks of cheap cosmetic procedures, if someone had told her what a breathing hole meant, her entire ordeal might have been avoided, and she didn't want anyone else to learn the way she did. Through fear, through pain, through trauma. She wanted to be the voice she never had. Months later, standing at a podium in front of a classroom at Florida State University, she took a shaky breath and began telling her story publicly for the first time. Dozens of students sat frozen, their faces pale, their hands covering their mouths. Some squirmed, some whispered, some stared at the photo Dr. Martinez had taken of the larva, preserved in a jar, but all of them listened. Kayla ended her talk the same way every time, with the truth that saved her life. When your body whispers, listen. When something feels wrong, don't ignore it, don't wait, don't explain it away, don't put makeup over it, don't call it just a blackhead. Trust yourself, trust what you feel. Your life is worth more than a moment of pride or embarrassment. The room always went silent. After her talk that day, a girl approached with tears in her eyes. She'd recently returned from Peru and had a strange bump on her shoulder. She'd been ignoring it for a week. After hearing Kayla's story, she went straight to the campus clinic. 2 days later, she emailed Kayla, "Thank you. It was a botfly. You saved me from going through what you did." Kayla cried when she read that message. Not from fear, not from trauma, but from relief. Her scar, once a reminder of everything she hated about herself, had become something else: a warning, a story, a symbol. Proof that even the darkest experiences can be reshaped into something powerful, something meaningful. A reminder that survival is not the end of the story. Sometimes, it's the beginning. She still touched the bridge of her nose sometimes, tracing the faint line left behind. Not with fear anymore, with gratitude. Because she lived, because she learned, because she could help someone else. And now, as you listen to her story, she would want to ask you the same questions she asks every class, every seminar, every person who's ever approached her, trembling with worry or shame. If your body was trying to warn you, would you listen? If something didn't look right, would you wait? If a bump appeared after a trip, after a hike, after a moment you dismissed as just a bug bite, would you ignore it? Or would you protect yourself before it was too late? Because Kayla didn't, and she paid for it with nightmares, scars, and months of fear she never deserved. If you take anything from her story, anything at all, let it be this. Don't gamble with your skin. Don't trust unlicensed beauty salons. Don't delay a doctor's visit because of money, embarrassment, or denial. Your body is too important to risk. If one person listens, one person gets help early, one person avoids the trauma she endured, then her story will have been worth the pain. If you've ever had a strange bump, if you've ever traveled somewhere tropical, if you've ever ignored a symptom that didn't feel right, this is your moment to act. Check it, don't wait. And if this story opened your eyes, even a little, hit the like button so more people realize how dangerous these things can be. Share this video with someone traveling soon. Comment below if you've ever had a medical scare you ignored for too long. And remember, the most dangerous wounds are the ones we pretend aren't there. Don't ignore yours.